Okay, in this video, we're going to walk through two classic AP Stats Unit 1 problems. The first one is matching histograms to box plots, and the second one is matching histograms to summary statistics. These questions are not about guessing. They're about reading shape, skew, outliers, center, and spread. So let's take a look at the first one, which is match each histogram with its corresponding box plot. And the strategy that I always use is the same. First, identify the shape of the histogram. Second, look for skew. And the third one is check for outliers. Then I match those features to the box plot. And let's take a closer look to histogram 1, which is in here. And histogram 1 looks roughly symmetric with most of the data clustered in the middle and no extreme bars far away. That tells me that there's no strong skew and no obvious outliers, and which correspond to box plot D right here. It matches with it perfectly because it balanced whiskers, centers median, and no outlier dots. So histogram 1 matches with D. And let's move on to number 2. Histogram 2 is clearly right skewed, you can tell. Most values are small, and then there's a long tail stretching to the right. That kind of shape usually produces a long upper whisker and often high-end outliers. And for box plot A, it has several dots above the whisker showing high outliers, which fits perfectly. So that means histogram 2 matches A. Let's move on to histogram 3. Histogram 3 is left skewed. Most of the data is piled up on the right with a tail stretching left. It's not as skewed as histogram 2, but it's also showing that it's skewed left identity. So I expect a longer lower whisker, possibly a low and outlier. So box plot C in here shows exactly that. Low outlier and more spread on the lower side, you can see from here. And because histogram 3 is it's still roughly symmetric, but with a little bit left skewed, so I would say choice C. It's also from the box plot you can tell, you cannot tell clearly it's left skewed, but because there's an outlier in here, so it kind of gives that left skew a little bit stretch. So it kind of reinforced that left skew identity, if that makes sense. So let's move on to histogram 4. It looks more evenly spread out without a strong skew and without extreme isolated bars, and it's pretty much like a uniform graph. And that suggests there's no outliers and it has moderate spread, and it also has fairly centered median. And from the choices, we can see that E matches this. It has clean whiskers, no dots, and a balanced box. So histogram 4 matches E. And last but not least, the fifth one, histogram 5 is also right skewed, but not as extreme as histogram 2, because you can see that for histogram 2, there's a very tall bar that is quietly different from all of the other bars, so it makes it even more stronger right skewed, which is different than histogram 5 in here. There's still a lot of bars, a lot of data centered at the left side, but there's also not all of the data are clearly on the left side. There's still some data probably in the middle right here, something. So histogram 5 is also right skewed, but not as extreme as histogram 2. So I would expect a longer right whisker, but fewer or no extreme outliers. And that fits with choice B right here. This box plot fits that because it's stretched upward, but much less dramatic than choice A. You can tell the difference from here. So histogram 5 matches with B. And let's just do a pretty quick wrap up for this question. The histograms shows shape, but box plots make skew and outliers really obvious. If you can identify skew, you can usually match these almost instantly. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. And sorry for the font, it's a little bit too small and it's a little bit blurry, and let me see, I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, so And you can see that those like different choices, like for the histograms, they have different numbers for the x-axis, so pay attention for that. So for the question 20, overall, I also used a strategy for it. So for those type of questions which basically testing you on the summary statistics, I focus on these three things. First is skew. It compare mean versus median and the spread. And second is the spread. You have to look at standard deviation and IQR. And the third is outliers. It blow up the standard deviation more than IQR in these cases. So let's take a look at histogram first, number one. So this histogram is very spread out with values ranging widely and a noticeable tail. And that means that it has large standard deviation and a large IQR. And if we take a look at choice D, it has the largest standard deviation and IQR, which matches this wide distribution. So that means that histogram 1 matches with D. And histogram 2 looks fairly symmetric and moderately spread, centered around about 10, I would say, like right here. And for symmetric distributions, the mean and median should be close, and the spread should be moderate. And option C fits that exactly, and mean and median are pretty close. You can see 10.2 and 10.5, and standard deviation and IQR are reasonable for this. So histogram 2 matches C. And histogram 3 is also fairly symmetric, but it's wider than histogram 2. So I expect the mean would be approximately equal to median, but larger standard deviation and IQR than histogram 2. So option B shows that increased spread in here. So histogram 3 matches B. And for histogram 4, this is also a strongly right-skewed histogram with most values set small and a long tail to the right. And in a right-skew distribution, the mean is greater than the median. Option E right here has mean 8.8 and median 8.0, which fits that pattern perfectly. So histogram 4 matches E. Last but not least, histogram 5. It looks tightly clustered with relatively little spread and no extreme values. And that suggests small standard deviation with small IQR. And if we go back to the very beginning, option A has the smallest standard deviation and IQR of all the choices. So histogram 5 matches A. And the final exam takeaways for those two questions, I mean, they're all like pretty good questions and helps you review how to identify socks. If you can remember, like from the previous videos, it all stands for like socks, shape, outliers, and center, also spread. So those are the four main characteristics for each distribution. For each graph, kind of like you can see that we're dealing with like mainly two types of graphs in this video: histogram and box plot. But you will definitely met more on your exam. So I wish you would review all of your notes from this unit, and these problems test whether you understand how skew affects mean and median, and how spread affects standard deviation and IQR. Also, how outliers show up in box plot and summary statistics. And if you always analyze the shape first, then those questions stop feeling random and start feeling logical.